Welcome back to my channel. I think you need to go back and watch star code into your light codes, right, so that you can understand this lesson. All right, so today we're going to be talking about the epigenetic activation, and we're also going to be talking about the crystalline body phases. Remember in one of my videos, I mentioned something about the crystalline body. All right, so today we're going to dive in just a little deeper. What is epigenetics? Right, so epigenetics is just basically the study of behaviors and environment cause changes, right, to the genetic sequences, or they can cause changes to what the genetic code. So they basically turn genes on and off, right? And these things are such as your diet. Diet is very important. Right? Stress, environment, the toxins, right? Exercise, meditation. These things can actually change, or they can actually alter how your cells read your genetic code, right? So what is the genetic code? The genetic code, you can think about it as a book, right? So remember I talked about how DNA gets converted into RNA and RNA gets converted into protein. So this genetic code is basically a book. It has all the information of how cells actually convert this information, or hereditary information, right? So being passed down from generation to generation. It actually contains information of what coding sequences, basically how cells get read, right, in the genetic sequences. And these codons, normally they are in 3-letter words, right? So such as AUG, right? That's a start codon, right? And then there's also a bunch of stop codons, how the cells get read from start to finish, right? So this is all encoded in what? In the genetic code. So when your Kundalini actually starts to rise, right? So I explained it in the other video, right? Star code into your light code, you're going to get to understand a lot. When the Kundalini energy starts to rise, this energy acts as a trigger, right? It acts as a trigger that activates what? Junk DNA.
Junk DNA. These tangled loops are non-coding sequences, once thought useless. Now, their mystery is being unraveled. Junk DNA includes transposons and pseudogenes. These elements don't code for proteins but may have other functions.
There's a transition that actually takes place right in the body. The body starts moving from a more dense carbon-based body, right, to ultimately a light body. And this light body is what we call silicone-based crystalline structure.
Atomic number 14, a versatile metalloid.
So it is understood, right, in metaphysics, right, even in genetics, that this silicone-based crystalline structure is the light body, right? Other people also call the crystalline consciousness, also called the Christ consciousness. The metaphysical and the spiritual world is also known as the second coming of the Christ. So if you don't know what the Christ is, you need to go back and watch my videos. So I kept on saying the Christ is an elevation, right? It's a state into higher consciousness. There's been so much information that has been misconstrued, right, over the years. The Christ, I know when people think about Christ, they think Jesus. The Christ has existed before Jesus, right? So the Christ is something totally different on its own. The Christ consciousness is not about some man, right, who is riding on a cloud, right, who's coming to save the world. No. This journey, it's actually about discovering the divine within oneself, or becoming one with God, or becoming God, right? Because if you are made in the image of God, it means that you're God, right? People describe it as the journey into becoming one with God, or the one with the divine, or one with the universe. When your Kundalini rises, your light bodies get activated. The whole goal is for the crystalline body to form. It's not a once-off thing, right? There are phases to forming the crystalline body. All right, this light body is the one that actually helps us to access higher dimensions, right? So remember I mentioned that we are able to tap into our universal divine intelligence. Yes, we are able to tap into higher consciousness because of this light body. Here are the four phases, or the four crystalline body phases. First phase is the energetic phase. Other people also call this the energy matrix. So in this phase, the life force, the Chinese call it chi, the yogis call it the prana, right? Other people call it is it the sechem or the secheme? In this phase, the life force energy gets absorbed, right, and then distributed across the body. Because remember why? It is this energy that is supposed to be pushing up, right, from the root, right, and then it moves, right, in a serpent-like motion up the spine. So a lot of people will be feeling as if, something is moving up the spine. Right, that is a sign that the Kundalini is activated or wants to activate. So people normally tend to have back pains. They normally tend to have, all sorts of sensation, right, in the spinal area. I think I explained in the Kundalini video, the Kundalini is also connecting to the divine feminine energy, right, which is another topic on its own. The chi basically gets absorbed and then distributed in the body, all right, and then leads us to what? It leads us to the second phase, the plasma phase. The plasma phase is about fluidity. So in this phase, your consciousness begins to release the old dense parts of yourself. Consciousness starts moving from becoming less dense into a more fluid, light state, right? So this is more of like a transitional state. In this state, you start to release a lot of emotional blockages, and you start to release a lot of old patterns, right, of yourself. So perception here, consciousness starts to change. The third stage is the crystalline phase. This is the advanced stage where energy and consciousness meet, right? They actually meet to become organized into a highly geometric stable pattern. In this stage, the body has been upgraded to receive and conduct higher light frequencies. I always said that the whole point of you actually going through these energy shifts, the whole point of why your star code is being converted into these light codes is because these light codes are going to help us to raise the consciousness, right? These light codes are going to help us to conduct higher frequencies. Super Saiyan! And then this actually connects us to our universal divine intelligence, right? This is how you're actually able now to start tapping into higher dimensions, right? A lot of people can actually describe this as becoming one, or sort of like unity consciousness, becoming one with the universe, right? And let me tell you about something about this phase. It's very fascinating. I remember for me, when the dragons woke up, it was thrilling but scary at the same time because I didn't know what was going on. Number 4 is the final integration, also known as the light body phase, right? So this is where you actually become a light body. And for you to actually become a light body, it means that all the layers, right, of the human being, they have actually synthesized, and they've actually come together. So from the physical to the mental to the etheric body. So in this phase, the human becomes an actualized light body, operating beyond limitations, right, of the 3D world, of the physical and the material world. So the reason that people are able to tap into higher dimensions is because they have activated the light body, because this allows us to tap into the universal divine intelligence. This is actually a process. It's not going to be done within 1 month. It's a process. It took me years for my Kundalini to fully, right, for me to actually become one with the divine. It took me years. Yeah. So please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and I will hope to see you next time. Bye.